With the Overwatch League now less than 24 hours away from starting again, I thought it'd be a good idea to post my early predictions for who I think is going to be our 2020 champions, as well as who I believe might go on to win the MVP award or Rookie of the Year. Before I do this though, I want to tackle the opening weekend first, giving a quick preview of what's going down at the New York and Dallas Homestands, whilst also showing off my week 1 match predictions as well. So without further delay, let's get right into it. Season 3 of the Overwatch League kicks off in New York with the first match of the 2020 season, seeing the Toronto Defiant take on the Paris Eternal. If you still aren't aware, it's important to remember this match will be streamed on YouTube rather than Twitch due to the deal that was struck between Google and Blizzard last week, so head to the Overwatch League's YouTube channel in order to catch the action. With the opening series starting at around 6pm UK time, or 1pm Eastern and 10am Pacific if you live in the US. This opening contest between the Defiant and Eternal is a very intriguing one, with both squads receiving mixed reactions this off-season following plenty of changes. Toronto have put together a team filled with fan favourites, experienced veterans and promising rookies, which undoubtedly has lots of potential, but it's too early to know whether they can come together effectively as a team. Paris meanwhile will be showing us for the first time how they hope to mesh together with their new mixed lineup, which will be missing key pieces like Hanbin and Sparkle at this early stage of the season. This series should give us a much better idea as to what level these two teams are at heading into this season, with most power rankings unable to agree on whether the Defiant are good or bad, whilst the majority of people reckon the Eternal are set for disappointment. From my perspective, I think this series is actually going to be quite close and probably more competitive than people expect, and I reckon it could be an excellent, entertaining curtain raiser for the new year of the league. Following this match, the second Saturday series taking place in New York sees the hometown Excelsior face the London Spitfire. New York have arguably strengthened what was already one of the strongest squads in the league by bringing in Hotba for Meko at off-tank, whilst also adding some extra depth at tank and support to help improve their challenge to win it all. London on the other hand have completely restarted, deconstructing almost the entirety of their 2019 roster, to then bring in younger, cheaper talent that the coaching staff is hoping to develop moving forward to eventually become a top team in the future. On paper this should be a walk in the park for the Excelsior, especially with their home crowd behind them, but potentially the lack of experience on the current patch could give the Spitfire an outside chance of an upset. More importantly though, I would look to see if New York can be dominant in this sort of matchup, whilst also keeping a close eye on London's rookies to perhaps see glimpses of their future potential. When the action in New York ends though, should things go to plan, we will almost immediately have more Overwatch to watch, with the Dallas Homestands set to start straight away afterwards. Saturday's first contest in Dallas sees the LA Gladiators play the Vancouver Titans. The Gladiators have made some promising moves in the off-season, with their new tank line of OG in space looking to be a great frontline for their established support pairing of Big Goose and Shaz. That said, the big question is their situation at DPS, which is completely up in the air and will likely determine whether they are a good or bad team this year. As for Vancouver, they haven't done too much with their squad, with nearly all of their 2019 starters returning. All eyes though will be on their main tank position, with their new man Fisher will be under the spotlight, not only to see his return to action, but also to try and establish whether he affects the Titans' synergy and team coordination after replacing their longtime member Bumper. If it isn't already clear, it will be crucial to watch both the LA's DPS line as well as Fisher on Vancouver, as these are the areas of each team that might determine the eventual outcome of this series, whilst at the same time giving us a clearer idea as to whether we should still see them as their team's current weaknesses. Saturday wraps up with Dallas playing host to the LA Valiant. The Fuel have made a few alterations to their squad, with Decay and Doha being brought in to upgrade their DPS position, whilst Gamsu will look to bring in leadership and experience at the main tank position. For another year however, most people don't trust this team, and whilst you can see a path to improvement, many think it's more likely that they're going to be disappointing for a third straight year. The Valiant however at first glance haven't done much better themselves. All their past stars have moved on, with a team like London bringing in cheaper players of potential that the team wants to develop and improve for the future. Rumours though apparently say that this team is looking quite good in scrims, and with prospects like KSP, they could be an early surprise, but this can only be validated after we've seen them take to the stage. I think this could be another really competitive and exciting series, but again should help us establish the strength of both of these teams. With their fan support though, Dallas would seem to have a slight edge, but perhaps the LA rookies can spoil the party. Sunday in New York sees two matches which should be completely opposite in terms of competition. London vs Paris should be an excellent watch, with both teams debatably around the same level of quality, with the winner likely getting a lot of early momentum for the season. This is followed by Boston playing New York in what should be a very one-sided affair. If the Uprising look good, then perhaps we'll need to re-evaluate their overall strength, but anything less than a convincing win at home for the Excelsior will be something that invites questions about their own overall quality. Heading back to Dallas to conclude the opening weekend, the Titans play their second LA opponent in the Valiant. Their matches from the day before will likely give us a better idea as to how close this series will be, but it should be one that promises a fun contest between the DPS lines. The Fuel close out their homestand with a tough match against a Shock, and unless they're massively declined, you'd expect San Francisco to win quite easily, but it will be interesting to see how they deal with a hostile environment against a team warmed up on stage from playing the day before. I've given a quick comment now on all the series we'll be seeing over the opening weekend of the Overwatch League 2020 season, but what about my predictions for these matches? In New York, starting on Saturday, I'm going to have to stay true to my power rankings and give the Eternals a slight edge in their series against Toronto, but I think they'll win 3-2. The other match I don't think will be a sweep, but I'd be very surprised if the Excelsior stumbled greatly, so I see them defeating London 3-1. As for Sunday, again as I've said before, I'm just leaning slightly more towards Paris, and as such I'm predicting them get past the Spitfire 3-2 again, before Boston struggle in the Excelsior's yard as they lose 3-0. As for the Dallas homestand, for Saturday I currently have a little more faith in the overall squad of Vancouver, which is why I think they're going to beat the Gladiators by a score of 3-1. The match between Dallas and the Valiant should be incredibly tight though, and just because of the crowd behind them, I'm giving the Fuel the tiniest of advantages in a 3-2 victory. Moving on to Sunday, again I think the strength of the Titans squad makes all the difference as they get past the Valiant 3-1, before the Shock completely silence the hometown crowd by brushing past Dallas with ease 3-0. Of course these are just my own predictions, so let me know how you think the matches will pan out this weekend down in the comments below. Before I end this video though, as promised I want to quickly mention some of the end of season predictions that I have right now, so I can either look like a 200 IQ Chad in a couple of months, or instead a complete clown. First up I want to discuss my early thoughts about the Rookie of the Year winner. There are plenty of players who could potentially end up taking this prize come the end of this year, like Philly's Alarm, Edison from Atlanta, or even a player like Yaki on the Florida Mayhem. But my prediction at this stage is going to be Glister on the London Spitfire. I think this guy has incredible talent across a wide variety of heroes, and whilst the Spitfire may struggle to take off as a team this year, his potential to pop off every week for them, no matter the hero pool, I think gives them a really good chance of receiving this award come the end of this year for consistent high quality performances. Following this, the next prediction I want to make is on the MVP recipient. Loads of players could be up for this award again, such as the previous winners like Sinatra and Jonak, whilst the rest of the field could be very competitive as well, with players like Fury on the Fusion, Erster from Atlanta, Vancouver's Haxel, the Shock's Rascal, and even Prophet from the Dynasty, also having a great chance of being in the running. But I'm going to be a bit interesting here, and pick Mano as my early 2020 MVP prediction. You'll come to understand this a little more in a minute, but I think he showed how impactful and important he was to the Excelsior last year, and I think consistency throughout this year's travel schedule will be essential for players trying to win this award, and this is something I'm backing him to show off. Lastly, I want to announce my early pick for the overall winner of the Overwatch League 2020 season. This is something that's bound to be wrong come the end of the season, but it's just for a bit of fun. Pretty much anyone within the top 10 of my power rankings could be considered here, from Atlanta to Philly, or perhaps either Seoul, Shanghai or Vancouver for instance. At any rate, I expect most people will be back in San Francisco to go back to back and win it all again, something I can completely understand given their quality and flexibility, and it appears this opinion is shared by all the Overwatch League analysts. However, I'm going to be a little different here. I think it's incredibly hard to win titles back to back, and whilst I expect the Shock to be in the grand final again this year, I'm actually going to predict the New York Excelsior to win it all come the end of this year. Yes, I know their playoff curse and the fact their squad isn't on paper as good as the Shock's, but again, let's call this a hunch of mine, as I think the changes this year have put the Excelsior in a great position to finally get over the hump, but be sure to let me know your own predictions. On that note though, that's all I've got to say ahead of the Overwatch League's 2020 opening weekend, and if you have reached the end of this video, then I'd like to thank you for watching. Be sure to check out my Discord and Twitter, where I'll be making comments about the matches over this weekend. But if you have enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe, with reaction and more content coming at the start of next week. Until then though, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and your upcoming weekend.